Okay, hello everyone. I'm Raymond. Okay, I'm in transition right now, so I used to head the innovation center or the innovation practice in Deloitte for Southeast Asia. I've also been the practice lead for the future of work and digital transformation at IDC. So a couple of topics I would like to engage you with everyone here is with the current effects or impacts from the virus in Asia, we have moved into a phase where we will look at, say, BCP, business continuity planning, and management itself. A couple of things to take note is that although this is not new, we have been through various events in the past like SARS, MERS, H5N1. There's so many instances where we have gone through this process, but the unique part about this particular incident is it's impacting the factory of the world. Manufacturing is being affected, and therefore it's no longer just a white collar or BCP management issue. Now it's gone to include another blue collar space. With manufacturing being impacted, what happens? So I will go into the basic introduction of what BCP is. I'm not going to go in depth, partially because this will take hours or days from a management consulting perspective.
Oh, sure, let me just have, no problem. Should be this one.
Okay. Just to put in the context, as with many countries in Singapore and Asia and around the world, we have, or they have actually activated their own extensive BCP or BCM processes. So the lessons learned from SARS and the MERS outbreaks are cases where they will bring them out of their cold storage if they've not been practicing it, or if they've not been repackaged or re-looked at in the past. A couple of things to take note. Singapore is kind of unique. It's, I think, the highest with Japan at 85 outbreaks currently. Partially because Singapore is a main air hub as well as a seaport. So there's a lot of transient trade as well as people going through Singapore. So the measures to include or have been implemented are remote working arrangements, personal protection provided by the government as well as organizations themselves. So what we need to take note about is, in Singapore's context, a lot of effort, a lot of initiative has been done, but we are always aware that it could be worse, it could get worse. Sorry. It could be worse and it could get worse if it's not tackled efficiently. Okay, so part of BCP plan is to look at three things. That means your current state itself. Where are you in relation to what is the issue on hand? Is there a business impact? So the BIA is where you look at what kind of impacts will cause a disruption in either your organization, the factories, the people, the processes, even your IT systems. And then you do a threat and risk assessment. So what are the threats? It's like a SWOT analysis that you do in management. So like a SWOT analysis, you look at the threats and then the risk assessments and then measure it and put weights on it. All of these three assessments will hopefully formulate your 5 plans. All right, so your business resumption plan, your occupant emergency plan, your continuity of operations plan, incident management plan, disaster recovery plan. Point 1. For some organizations, if say in the banking or finance industry or predominant knowledge working industries, it's quite easy to restart your business once the virus has actually toned down or the opportunity to actually restart your business is available. For factories, you need to stagger your production startups. It's not so instantaneous where you just, the next day everyone reports to work and the factory operation runs. You have supply chain management issues. You have, in certain cases, you're not able to start up all your machines at one go because it's a production line. So you need to plan for that, for a business resumption issue. Occupant emergency plan would be, if in Singapore's case, we go to a code red, we will split probably 50-50, where perhaps 50% of the staff can be in the office, 50% of the staff will work from home, some form of ratio. So for what, like I said, package finance, you might be able to say everyone reports to work first week of next week, all right? Everyone just reports to work, but you might want to stagger the sudden influx of everyone coming back from work at the same time, stagger into maybe 2 or 3 groups. So how do you plan to go about doing that as one? Like say on the factory shop floor, it's the same thing. If it's a production line, you might want the first portion of your production line to commence first, then stagger subsequent machines or subsequent steps in your factory itself. So this is how you will plan it. Continuity of operations. So this is another issue where some companies invested in remote working, co-working spaces, or they have operations that are diversified enough for them to actually manage, I would say, the current issues that we have right now. Incident management plan is, okay, back to what is this incident? How do we assess the incident? How do we rate the incident? How do we go about inputting whatever knowledge we gain from all the previous incidents in the past, say SARS or MERS? How do we continue that into the next process? Because if you look at the past incidents, it's about 5 to 10 years apart. So you have a kind of a 5-year gap, which you could actually repackage, relook at your current processes. Your disaster recovery plan. I did a project once for, I would say, a French company. And what happened was during the in Japan itself, when we had the tsunami, it cut off all connectivity itself. So a lot of management in France were trying to figure out whether their staff in Japan were impacted. So there was no way of communicating there. There were no plans in place that took care of that group that's actually based in Japan or working through the Japan office. So that caused an incident where management was saying, what do we have? Alternative forms, alternative methods to do recovery of our employees, our staff, our processes, our documents, our files. How do we go about pulling those kind of assets back or consolidating it? Those were the days pre-cloud, pre-software as a service. So there were issues then that would be less relevant today, but the knowledge gained from that tsunami incident helped them shape what they will be for the disaster recovery plan going forward. Okay, the benefits of drafting a disaster recovery plan. Just keep it simple. It provides everyone with a sense of security, meaning that you are assured it's an insurance policy that you put in place through effort and time doing your research, doing your structuring, doing your frameworks, doing your testing itself. Hopefully, it also minimizes the risk of delays. So delays could be, how do you inform your staff? How do you inform your partners as well as your business vendors, etc., and even your customers? Should there be disruption in any of your processes, in any of your key milestones or key points in your business itself? How do you minimize those delays? How do you inform them? The third point would be reliability of standby systems. So you look, this is more on the IT standpoint. If you've not been tested before, how do you shift, say, hundreds of thousands of workers from working in an office environment to going on the cloud or working from home? So you need to test certain things. One of them would be, of course, your connectivity issues. Not every employee might have internet at home or internet services at home, so probably they're working off their mobile devices or tablets. So is that going to be an issue? Are their subscription plans catered to allow them to claim for data connectivity should they be working offsite or from home? So what are your standby systems in place? The fourth one is it needs to be tested. Every standard, every framework, every design, you have to test it for possibilities of issues or errors. Whether you covered all your bases, that's the idea. So testing the plan, it could be small, it could be a large test plan. You see that probably in an example would be your fire drills in your office. So everyone moves down, we test that. Whether we can move enough people down fast enough, and we take standards. The fifth one will be, of course, decision making during a disaster. Who makes the calls? Back to the example of the French client that I had for Japan. I made the decision call to trigger out the telcos themselves have a how should I say? The telcos themselves have an insurance policy where should any of the fiber cables get cut, we fire up satellite comms. The idea is satellite comms is expensive, but it's not meant to push data. It's meant to provide connectivity from the ground-based station to the satellites to the nearest ground-based station, and hopefully get some connectivity or voice calls through. So that was my decision call. Because I was authorized to do it, I am the risk profile manager for that period of time, and my response time was 30 minutes because I kind of stayed next to the office. Yeah, so I'm the one that the systems will track. All my phones and my computers were flag red, and then I'll just cross over, and then I'll take the initiative and make the decision call. Later on, I had to explain doing why I did it, but thankfully the clients and the customers who appreciated the effort of trying to help them connect with their staff as well as their family members who were there, wrote very good reviews on my ability to respond fast. So that kind of saved my explanation to senior management why I triggered that particular insurance policy. The sixth point is we have to look at legal liability. So different countries around the world have different work policies as well as system policies in place. So we need to take that into consideration. The last one is, of course, like Eddie has said, the mindset is that some people are very comfortable with working in an office environment where they meet their colleagues, where all the information is located in the office. Some people find it stressful to work from home because they have family commitments, or the home environment was never built, or they have no area for them to actually do productive work at home. So that is sometimes a stressful environment for them. And how could we alleviate that? So some companies actually took the prerogative and ran co-working spaces or small workspaces where people could actually continue to work, but on a remote standpoint. This slide gives a very high-level example of some of the BCP shortfalls that were discovered. So a high priority, more than 60% actually discovered that there were so many errors in the plan because it's never been tested. And another 50% found that plans were not up to date. It never catered for all the possible incidences or possible scenarios. So this is where people need to actually take an effort to relook at their plans, all right? Rebuild areas where technology has moved on and their plans were still 5 years back. So things like I said, cloud services, backup services, security services for mobile, tablets, work remote from home, VPN. So all this needs to be updated with the latest policies. There's also another group in the third point, unable to find passwords. Working from office, working from home sometimes causes an issue. I've encountered that as well. So when you plug into your network in office, everything, you can access it without even say keying in your password, other than the device password that you need to log on. But once you work from home, some people forget that there are specific passwords for specific storage spaces or specific tools when you work from home. So some people forget the passwords and they trigger the IT department, and the IT department gets flooded with all these calls and support issues. All right, the next one is insufficient backup power, which would be more on the data center side. It's planned and unplanned, so resources will be an issue. Communications not in place. This brings back to the point where how do you deliver sufficient communication with your employees as well as your customers and maybe your partners and vendors. Personnel not trained into BCP, working from home, accessing tools. What is the actual policy for doing certain issues when you have a BCP program or you're working from home? Third one, as I said, third last one will be system priorities not identified. So what areas would IT need to trigger in order for BCP to work? All right. Subsequently, the plan not documented. People do not know what they need to do. So a good point with the mobile applications we have today is you could build, say, a HR policy app with a BCP plan inside. So when you trigger it, all the staff will actually know what's the next step, what they need to do, how they can go about executing things that were otherwise not covered. So it also refreshes them through the mobile app. The last one, of course, the last 10% is event not identified. So this particular virus event is, some of them are not identified because it impacts manufacturing.
Yeah, go ahead.
It impacts manufacturing, and where do you find alternate sources for your manufacturing of your products when China is the factory of the world? So this was not probably catered for. So these are the issues that have cropped up, and people have noticed it, and they are working on it to amend it. Just to share with, this is just a high level slide. It tells you how to reiterate what was spoken. Point one is, of course, to assess your risk and then share the results with all the business stakeholders. IT department, HR, the risk team, legal, etc. So everyone needs to get involved and help build that collateral itself. The next one, to how do you strategize the risk? Put it onto maybe weights, what is critical, what's not critical. And that also impacts your people and resources. So you could stagger the disruption by letting some frontline folks work from home first, and then slowly you work your back-end people bit by bit, all right? The third is to invest. So investment in technology, services, and solutions will always be critical. You neglect any portion of it, the disruption will manifest itself when working from home, right? An example was, of course, the mobile plans and policies in place. How do you secure devices that will otherwise be secured in your office network, but now you're working from home, where perhaps the home network is not as secure, or there are other computers in that home network that have viruses. Okay?
There's a question online about what is DRP? Not on your chat. You mentioned DRP earlier.
Okay, disaster recovery plan. Okay. Sorry. So where was I? Okay, fourth. Everyone needs to educate. Everyone needs to be educated on what's the BCM, the management, and the BCP, the policy itself. All right. So that helps to shape the understanding of what can be done, what cannot be done in the overall scope of the incident. And of course, back to point 5, the last way you measure it. Was it effective? Could more be done? And then put it back in the system and feedback again. So this is the constant feedback loop. All right, this is a takeaway slide. Most of you could see it. I won't read it word for word. So part 1 is, of course, to prepare. Part 2 is to take action. So the part 1 preparation is in this case, what is the overview of the coronavirus? The difference between SARS and MERS, so you take that into consideration. The second point, of course, is discuss the key differences and similarities with your BCP folks. All right, so have a pandemic response plan, have people who look at this from a high level management perspective, as well as from middle management, and then down the value chain itself in your organization. Like I said in my previous slide, next point, to determine the critical business functions or processes to be protected. All right, so you stagger your disconnect from your office environment to your home, for example, or working from a remote site. You assess what critical functions could be, shall we say, decreased or improved on. Fourth point, discuss the possible pandemic response strategies. So different pandemic response strategies, it could be from the influenza, it could be for the Ebola, or it could be another possibility is what we have right now. So different response strategies, you do not have one generic one that cuts across the board. And of course, prepare the response plan. Who's going to announce it? How will you address it? How will you explain it to people who use social media to get in touch with you? Right, so you need to have that response plan in place. And part 2, the action point. So determine the activation procedures. So you need to have key people who make decision calls along the way, so that elevates your senior management or middle managers to execute whatever plans are there. So you advise people, or you authorize people in positions that are in IT, risk advisory, HR, or even in sales, for example. How do they go about executing those decisions? All right. Next point is establish the communication protocols, what channels or procedures. This is elaborated. I elaborated in the earlier points. The third one, discuss policies, precautionary measures to take. So, like I said, keep everyone informed. Be open, be transparent in what is happening, and explain it along the way.
Keep talking.
And second last is, of course, get into action. You must always test your plan. There's no point planning for something if you never tested it. That's why it goes back to the earlier slide with the graph where 60% of them failed because the plan was never tested. And then back to key success factors. What was done successfully, what was done less successfully, and what actually failed. And put it back into the system itself. And then from there, hopefully the next response, the next BCP or next BCP planning will take away a good chunk of those issues. All right, I believe that's my last slide. Thank you everyone for your time. If anyone has any issues regarding BCP or BCM considerations and would like to explore further, you can reach out to me or Yuli, and then we'll get in touch. As I would like to reiterate that this current incident is very unique in the sense that it impacts a lot, I would say, management as well as white collar as well as blue collar folks, manufacturing industry, transport, tourism. So everyone just take care of yourselves and be prepared and wash your hands. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Raymond.